Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite soccer podcast. We had an exciting week of football that just passed. Champions League, Europa League, you name it, we had it. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's show. First part of the show, we're going to be talking about that Champions League quarterfinal second leg. I'm also going to do a little bit of a preview for that semifinal. We got four very exciting clubs and top clubs going up against each other. And I'm going to be giving you guys a little bit of a preview in that first segment. Second segment, we're going to be moving on to the Europa League quarterfinal second leg. Talk about how those games, ended up, which teams moved on. And then we're going to be doing the same thing, doing a semifinal preview. We have some very exciting matchups. Literally all the top clubs made it through, and it'll be a very, very exciting semifinal for that Europa League. Third segment, I'm going to be talking about the Cup finals and semifinals. We had Manchester City and Chelsea going at it, and there was a pretty, I would say an upset result there in the FA Cup semifinal. And for the Copa del Rey final, we're going to see Barcelona versus Athletic Bilbao. I'm going to be recapping those games, and if we have time, I'm going to be going over the top 5 leagues as well, just giving you guys a little bit of that domestic league talk. And then last, we're going to continue that top 10 players in each English team. This time we're moving on to Liverpool, so we're going to be talking about the top 10 Liverpool players this season. So without further ado, let's just get started with that Champions League quarterfinal second leg recaps. We had some very exciting games, a lot of suspense going on throughout them. One game was a little bit wasn't much going on. I would actually say 2 games, with that Chelsea-Porto tie and that Liverpool-Real Madrid tie. Obviously, when you think Liverpool and Real Madrid, you're talking 2 of the most prolific clubs in the entire world. But this game was just a lot of opportunities that both teams had, but at the same time, they didn't really take them all that well. I do have to give a lot of props to that Real Madrid defense. And honestly, you can talk both ways. Both of these teams had makeshift defenses in this game. Liverpool putting out Kabak and Phillips. Obviously, Kabak being one of their bigger signings during that winter transfer. But it's just, that's not who they wanted there, at the beginning of the season, with Virgil van Dijk injured. Obviously, they got to have Fabinho in that middle of the pitch. And Henderson, I believe Henderson is injured at the moment. So, they don't have their full complementary of players. And that obviously has hurt Liverpool throughout this entire season. And, it just sucks to not see that full starting 11 for that, really good club there in England. But then you go and look at that Real Madrid side, and they also had a makeshift defense. No Rafael Varane, no Sergio Ramos. So they went out there with Nacho Fernandez and Eder Militao. So you got to give it up for both of those defenses to be able to, or both of those center back pairings to really keep this game close and play well enough defensively where, there was no easy opportunities. I will say in the beginning of the game, Liverpool were getting a lot of opportunities to score, especially the first opportunity of the game for Liverpool, where Mane found Salah pretty much with an open shot at goal. He only had to beat Courtois, but of course it's a lot easier said than done. Courtois is one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and he's proving that this season. And, Courtois made a great save, but that was the case for Liverpool for most of this game. But to be honest, that was really the only clear-cut chance that Liverpool had in this entire game. There were a couple from like Wijnaldum that he surely could have scored, but they just continued to fire them over the post, over the crossbar, and just weren't really getting a decent shot at goal. We're never really threatening, Courtois with a solid shot. He didn't really have to make any crazy saves. He was certainly there, when he had to come off his line to really stop like a Salah run or Mane or Firmino sometimes. But for the most part, like this was a very sound game defensively from Real Madrid. They were constantly keeping the attackers of Liverpool in front of them. They weren't allowing them to get behind them very often, if anything, ever. I mean, I would say really that first shot on goal from Salah was the only one I can honestly remember. But the rest of this game was just, a lot of sluggish play, a lot of, it did get a little chippy here and there with between James Milner and Casemiro picking up a yellow card because of it. But for the most part, it was just Liverpool not taking advantage of their chances. You look at their stats, and they had 15 shots in this game, only 4 of those on target. They were getting their looks. They were putting pressure on Real Madrid, not allowing them to get into much of a rhythm, which led to them only having 6 shots and 2 of those on target. But man, Liverpool needed at least 2 goals in this final leg, and they didn't even get one. It ended with a goalless draw, and obviously that means Real Madrid move on to that semifinal. But I don't know. I felt like there could have been a lot more in this game. But I'm 100% crediting Real Madrid's defense, Casemiro, Modric, of course that back line, just always being, in that vicinity and causing Liverpool to have to, play with guys around them and not just have an easy shot at goal. That's obviously what they're looking for, that, at least those counterattacks where they can get into open space. And Liverpool just didn't have those opportunities in this game. And, you can certainly say that Liverpool should have at least scored a goal, maybe even made this a tie, a big-time game and made it 2-0, because Real Madrid certainly didn't have a lot of opportunities. There was one where Benzema hit the post, and it felt like, he almost scored there, and then Vinicius had a couple nice runs where it felt like he was going to get a decent look at goal, but he, kind of mistouched it a couple times, which allowed Alisson to get off his line and make a play. But, it was mainly a defensive masterpiece from Real Madrid throughout this entire game, and Liverpool just unable to take care of those chances. So that to me was the real makeup of this game. And now Real Madrid move on to that semifinal to take on Chelsea. And it's going to be a pretty interesting game. I mean, you got Chelsea playing incredible football right now, being one of the best offensive teams since Tuchel has arrived. Obviously, offensively, they still have, a lot of work to do. But, you got Real Madrid and their defense, and they can always turn it up offensively. And I guess I'm kind of doing a little bit of preview there, so I'll just stop talking about that, just move on to the next leg. But yeah, that game between Liverpool and Real Madrid left a lot to be desired there. Now, we move on to that Porto versus Chelsea game, and this was kind of the same thing between both teams. I mean, Chelsea were getting their opportunities, getting, a few opportunities at goal, but they just never were able to, I don't know, like really stifle that defense of Porto. Like, Porto were consistently in the way. They were consistently, making things difficult for Chelsea, which is why Chelsea only had 1 shot on target in this entire game. It wasn't that much better for Porto. Like I said, Chelsea have been one of the best defensive teams since Thomas Tuchel's arrival at Stamford Bridge. And that's why Porto only had 8 shots and 2 of those on target. Chelsea obviously did worse, 8 shots for 1 on target. But you do got to credit Porto for really putting the pressure on Chelsea and trying to get as many opportunities as possible. They had slightly more possession, but it was really their play in that Chelsea final half, like in Chelsea's half, I should say, that I was really impressed with, even though it didn't really result in many good opportunities, because of course Chelsea's defense was ready for the task to keep this, in their favor. But there was one incredible moment in this game that needs to be talked about, which was that Taremi goal at the end of the game. I mean, it didn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things because it came with just a minute left to play. So obviously it was a little too late type of moment. But man, Taremi literally just scored the goal of the tournament, I would say, like easily. I mean, that bicycle kick was just so beautiful. I mean, hit the side of the goal. It was like that side netting. It was, I don't know, when I saw that, I honestly couldn't believe it. I know he came in as a substitute in like the 60th minute. You instantly felt his impact. I mean, he was a target man for that team, a guy who, whenever a ball went into the box, he was usually in that area, either putting a shot on target. But Edouard Mendy was there for most of those chances, but that bicycle kick, nobody was saving it. Edouard Mendy was literally frozen in place when he shot that, and nobody could have stopped it. It was just perfect timing. I mean, the ball was going over his back shoulder, man, just like, it was unbelievable. Wayne Rooney-esque, honestly. It was that type of goal, and it really made this game a lot more exciting than it actually was in the end. But and he will be winning that goal of the tournament unless something magical happens in the final two, or I guess you could say now 3 games of the tournament that are left. But yeah, it just was too little too late for Porto, man. They had their chances. They didn't really take advantage of them. And that's why they're now eliminated from this competition. They did win 1-0, so I guess they can take that home. But of course, they wanted to move on, but they just didn't do so. They were held they were kind of stifled by that Chelsea defense. The biggest thing for me though is that Chelsea's offense just continues to look just stagnant at times. Like they can't really figure out how to, make something work in that final third. Like obviously they got some great players that can create off the dribble. Christian Pulisic was having a great game. Who was it? Mason Mount was playing well. They also had Kai Havertz up top. Jorginho is great with the ball. Reece James, Chilwell. All those guys are really great at getting the ball up the field. But when it comes to that final third, like the decision-making is just very, very poor. And as they head further and further into this competition, they're going to be facing teams that are defensive juggernauts. Like they're going to be taking that on in the next round in Real Madrid, one of the best defensive teams in the world. Luckily, Chelsea have kind of transformed into one of those teams as well, a team that can really stifle you defensively and make things extremely difficult because of their athleticism, their savviness in that back line. I mean, Thiago Silva and Azpilicueta are incredible defenders. Rudiger, obviously, he's also a really good defender, but in my opinion, he doesn't really stack up to what Silva and Azpilicueta really bring to that back line. And obviously, you got to talk about Kante and Jorginho also helping out on that defense. It all makes it incredibly difficult for anyone to really score against Chelsea. But it obviously in the end it comes down to, can you score goals? And Chelsea at the moment at the highest level, I just don't think they'll be able to do it consistently, which will hurt them as we near closer and closer to that final. So next, let's move on to the Man City versus Dortmund game, where things were actually heating up pretty early on in this game. Dortmund were really giving it to Man City. I mean, consistent possession, opportunities at goal. They even scored a goal early on in this game with a beautiful shot from Jude Bellingham, the 17-year-old wonder kid that just continues to impress as the season has gone on. Obviously, that move from where was he at? Birmingham, I believe he was at. Which because the only reason I remember that is because I thought it was funny when it was Jude Bellingham getting sold from Birmingham. Judge me as you want, but that's how I remember things. And I mean, the kid can play. I mean, that shot was incredible. I didn't even think he had enough time to really get off a good shot in that situation, but he was still able to get a really nice power on it, good curl, and get it just past Henderson. And honestly, that beginning of the game was all Borussia Dortmund, and you would not have been surprised if they had scored a second goal and really put the pressure on for Man City. But it just didn't turn out that way. I mean, the rest of that first half, it was kind of back and forth. Man City were getting their opportunities. Phil Foden is an absolute monster. I mean, the way he plays, I heard recently during this FA Cup game that I was watching between Man City and Chelsea that Taylor Twellman said that he's playing like a top 5 player in the world right now. Top 5. That means he's got him over, some number of like Messi, Ronaldo, Mbappe, Neymar, Lewandowski. He's got him over at least one of those guys. And I don't know about that. I mean, he's certainly got the potential to be there. I mean, his pace, his scoring ability, his passing, his work rate, it's all, elite levels right now. But I don't know if I'll go that far. But he is an incredible talent, and he's so much fun to watch. And he was bringing it all into this game. And, of course, that goal that he scored late in the game, 75th minute, was, just more evidence of that incredible talent that he has. To score from outside the box, near post, with the power he had to get by hits. Oh, my God. That was just absolutely ridiculous what he did. And you gotta credit Man City to, even when the game kind of seemed like it was getting away from them with that ridiculous onslaught that Dortmund was giving them in the beginning of the game. Like, I would say the first 35 minutes were literally all Dortmund. The possession, the shots, but they settled things down, and that second half was literally all Man City, and even more dominant than what Dortmund were doing, because They just seem so much more organized when they get things under control. And I mean, there was a handball that tied the game up. It resulted in a penalty. It is a handball because Emre Can did have his arm out when he headed it. I feel like a couple years ago that wouldn't have been a handball. But of course now with VAR, intent doesn't matter. It's gonna end up being a penalty. That's just the way it is nowadays. I don't like it, but whatever. That's just the way it is now. We got to deal with it. But, and that on top of what Emre Can did in the first leg, he certainly has been, he's brought on as a veteran presence, someone that adds a lot of experience to this club, but he made a lot of mistakes that certainly put Dortmund in a tough situation in these 2 legs. But Man City were able to capitalize on that penalty. Riyad Mahrez just absolutely struck it into the back of the net. Nothing Hits can do about that. And yeah, that was pretty much Man City from that point on. Even before that, they were just continuously putting pressure on Dortmund, weren't allowing them to really put any sort of, momentum in their play. And another thing I gotta say, Haaland was another no-show in this game. Like, the man is, has incredible talent, but he just did not show up over these 2 legs. And that, in my opinion, was the biggest difference. Because if you had, the Haaland that we know and love playing in these 2 legs, this could have been a totally different result. You could easily have seen Borussia Dortmund putting it away. But at the same time, you got to credit that Man City defense. Ruben Diaz, John Stones, they really put a lot of pressure on strikers. They don't allow them to have much space. And even with Haaland, with his incredible athleticism, his pace, his strength, he still wasn't really able to get much room and many opportunities in this game. I don't know what the amount of shots he had. I mean, there were 10 shots for Borussia Dortmund. I'd be surprised if he had even one of them. Maybe he had 1, but 2, I don't think so. I just didn't feel that kind of impact from him in this game. The great thing about Haaland, though, is that he can do it in other ways. He's obviously a great scorer first and foremost, but he can beat you in other ways, creating for other players, his strength to really, break up plays. He does it all, but he just wasn't here in this one, and that honestly cost Dortmund. I mean, Dortmund were playing well, and Jude Bellingham was probably the player of the game for Dortmund in this game, not just because of the goal, because his relentlessness to just do whatever it takes to get the ball back, to his technical skills when he has the ball. It was all incredible to watch. But yeah, this it just felt like this task was a little bit too much for Dortmund, and they're obviously fighting a little bit too high on their weight class, to be honest with you. They obviously still have great players, but when you consider the quality that Manchester City has up and down their roster, there was never really any real chance for Borussia Dortmund to move on. They would have needed literally an amazing 2 legs from Haaland. They didn't get one from in either of them. And technically, yes, they were still pretty close. But at the end of the day, they needed to score 3 goals at the end to really win. And that was never going to happen here. They were never going to put up 4 goals on Man City. They needed to hold this team to a clean sheet, which is also extremely hard to do. That's how good this Man City team is. And they just weren't able to do it. So that's Man City moving on to that semifinal, one step away from the final that they have never gotten to. I don't believe Man City has ever made it to a Champions League final. I know they've never won a Champions League. That 100% sure I know. But a final, I don't even think they've made it there. So they're one step away from a historic run there. And now we're going to move on to who they're going to be facing, which is PSG versus Bayern Munich. This was such an amazing 2 legs. I mean, the first one, which ended 3-2 in PSG's favor, was so much fun. Back and forth action. Both teams getting opportunities, playing well on both sides of the ball. Just there were times when both teams were just a little bit better on that attacking end. This one was kind of the opposite. It was both teams were really getting opportunities to score, but it just wasn't falling for them. Like, especially for PSG, Neymar had so many opportunities to score the ball, and he hit the back of it, and he hit the post on 2 of them. And there was one where he should have had an easy tap in from a pass from Di Maria across the face of goal, and he just couldn't get to it. I mean, Neymar could have easily had a hat trick in this game. It just didn't fall his way. And that one where he absolutely faked out, I think it was Sane, who thought he was going to take a shot from outside the box. He cut back towards the box, opened his body up, and just hit hit it towards the goal, hit that crossbar. That was such a beautiful move from Neymar, and he was so good in this game. I mean, just making guys miss left and right, getting opportunities to score on multiple occasions. I mean, PSG's attack looked, despite not scoring a goal in this game, they somehow looked even better than when they scored 3 goals against Bayern away from home. I don't know how that's possible, but they really did. They looked that much better in this game. It just didn't fall for them in the end. But regardless, it doesn't matter. Even with Bayern getting that goal, PSG's 3 away goals in that first leg were enough to get them through to the next round and face Man City in the semifinal. That's going to be another incredible 2 legs. I mean, PSG's getting everything this year. They got Barcelona in the round of 16, freaking Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals, and now Man City in the semifinal. I mean, nobody, and I do not care that Lewandowski was not there for both legs. PSG were missing Marquinhos and Verratti, among others, in this second leg, and they were still able to pull it off, put up a great defensive effort in this game to really, not allow Bayern to get many easy looks at goal. Like, they certainly had shots. If I go to the stats here, it should say that it was in their favor. Yeah, it was 14 shots in Bayern Munich's favor compared to 10 for PSG, and 5 of those on target. And yes, Bayern had a slight edge in possession, but really, this was a great game defensively from PSG. You have to hand it to them. And you got to give it to Bayern Munich as well. They just didn't have that that creativity on the wings that you usually see from them. Sane, Coman, I just didn't really feel much from them. Sane had a couple opportunities, but when it really came to that final shot, he just didn't have it. Like, he was consistently, either being really weak with those shots or not accurate, and it just wasn't falling for him. Müller had a solid game. I mean, Choupo-Moting, I never have anything bad to say about Choupo-Moting. I mean, he's just such a high work rate type of player, and I love those guys. He did get the goal for Bayern Munich before halftime, but honestly, though, he didn't really do much else other than that. So, of course, Bayern Munich were missing Lewandowski in a big way. And, of course, that would have probably changed this tie. I mean, I honestly feel like the PSG defense was playing so well that I still think they would have passed on through. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, you're being a homer right now. There's absolutely no way PSG moves on. when Lewandowski's healthy. Well, give me Verratti and Marquinhos healthy during both legs as well. And I guarantee you that PSG probably still wins, because just the way they were able to get through that back line of Bayern, it kind of feels like they've learned from their mistakes from the final, that they were able to consistently get opportunities to score. And you think Neymar is consistently missing those shots? I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. So, in the end, PSG move on, after a very entertaining 2 legs. I hope we get the same in that Man City PSG semifinal. I'm sure we will. I mean, 2 incredible teams, and it finally is feeling like PSG is starting to be seen as they've been known as one of those top clubs because, of course, the money that they have. But I'm talking about in terms of just the feel of them when they're in the game. It just feels like they have so much confidence in themselves, and they just play at such a high level now. It just feels so good as a fan that's gone through those tough years. The 6-1 against Barcelona, the loss to the second team Man United club, or whatever, Man United second teamers, losing to, Real Madrid. Going through all those years, it feels so gratifying to see them finally putting it all together over 2 legs consistently against top clubs. Barcelona, and now Bayern Munich, and now another test in the name of Man City. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the Europa League quarterfinal second legs, and if I have time, talk about that semi-final preview as well, right after this.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the Champions League quarterfinal second legs, and I gave a quick thought on what I expect from the semifinals as well. So if you guys want to go check that out, please go and do so. But now we're going to be talking about the Europa League quarterfinal second legs, and same thing, I'm going to give my thoughts about some exciting semifinals coming our way. First, let's talk about Villarreal versus Dynamo Zagreb. Let's start off small, and then let's work our way up. So this game had a lot going on, especially early on. You had Dynamo Zagreb not really getting too much into the game. It was more Villarreal really imposing their will on Dynamo. They just couldn't really get an accurate score on goal. There was one where I can't say his name correctly, but it was Chukwueze, I'm assuming. He had a decent shot at goal in the box. He hit it hard and it went right off the post. That was like their closest shot in the early moments of the game. Dynamo Zagreb, they didn't really have anything going either. It was like the first 39 minutes of the game, or 35 minutes of the game, there was only one shot on target for both teams. So there wasn't really much going on in way of attack, but both teams were getting opportunities inside the final third of the other team. They just couldn't really get away a good shot. That was the main thing in the early parts. But then just before halftime, Villarreal turned it up to another level and just started getting a lot of space and were taking advantage of it. The first goal was perfectly set up by Gerard Moreno. He found, who was it that he found? I believe it was Capoe, I believe. I'm probably saying that name so wrong. But oh no, it was actually Albiol. It was Albiol. He found Albiol, streaking up the floor. He found them perfectly, and then he found Paco Alcacer perfectly, inside the box for an easy tap in. That was a very easy goal. It was so close to being offsides. He was literally like a foot, like an inch away from being offsides, but they called it onside. And that goal was rewarded for Villarreal, giving them a 2-0 lead on aggregate and 1-0 lead in the score in the game. And shortly after that, they just continued to get more opportunities into the box. This time it found Gerard Moreno, and I mean that man has been in such great form of late, and he just put in a really great shot into the back of the net, kind of off balance as well. But man, he seriously just cannot miss right now, and Gerard Moreno put Villarreal pretty much into that semifinal with that goal. So by the time it hit halftime, it was technically done. Like at that point, Dynamo had to put up 3 goals, and that was going to be a hard, task to complete, considering that their attack wasn't really clicking on all cylinders. However, that second half was certainly much, much better from Dynamo. They were getting a lot more opportunities. And you could feel a sense of urgency from them because, of course, they had to get 3 goals at that point, and they were 0 in both legs at that point. So, you were obviously seeing a team that was desperate and were trying to get something going, and they were doing well. But the thing is, it was still allowing Villarreal to get more opportunities inside or in the Dynamo half because they were obviously pushing up a lot more, so it was opening up a lot of space for guys like Chukwueze. Because, him and his pace, his direct attacking football was certainly, on display throughout this entire game. But, of course, the man of the match has to go to Moreno. The way he was playing throughout the entire game, setting up teammates, scoring that really, really nice goal to put this, tie away from Dynamo. But Dynamo did get a good goal. They got a goal on the kind of late in the game. I think it was like the 75th minute. Which had, what was his name? Orsic scored in the 74th minute to give Dynamo some sort of hope. They still needed 2 extra goals to really move on to the semifinal. But it was some really solid football. Orsic found one of his teammates inside the box. He just kept on running, and he was found streaking through the box, and he was able to finish it really nicely. And that was actually his 6th goal in 12 matches in the Europa League. So he's obviously been playing extremely well. It just was a little too, it was too little too late. I've been doing that. A little too late. Like, come on, Steve. But yes, it was just a little, I just did it again. It was just too little too late for Dynamo, as they did get that consolation goal there but it was all they could really do. Like, if Villarreal were keeping their, the Dynamo players in front of them, weren't allowing them to get, attack in space, while Villarreal were pretty much living in space throughout that entire second half. Chukwueze was getting multiple opportunities, hit the post again in the second half, made the goalkeeper for Dynamo, don't remember his name, what was it, Livakovic, it forced him to make a couple crazy saves, which he did. He played extremely well in this game. He had to make a couple diving saves, some kind of awkward saves, but he did so, and it kept his team in the game, but they just couldn't really promote anything or create anything in that attack to really put a threat on Villarreal in this tie. So you got Villarreal moving on to that second leg, or into that semifinal, and they will be facing off against Arsenal, who had an incredible second leg against Slavia Prague. It felt like they can do no wrong in this game, especially in that first half. The first leg, they were missing a lot of opportunities, and obviously it cost them because they were down on aggregate after that first leg. But this game, they did not miss out on those opportunities. You got the first goal by Nicolas Pepe, beautifully set up by Emmett Smith-Rowe to be able to hold on to the ball and then find Nicolas Pepe open in the box. And also, you got to give credit to Pepe to be able to hold on to the ball with a body, with an opponent right behind him, create enough space and kind of like fake out the goalkeeper that he was going to shoot right away, but he held on to it just long enough so he'd get an open shot at goal. It was still a tight angle, so it was a very well taken goal by Nicolas Pepe, and I like what I'm seeing from him, man. He's been playing a lot better. He's finally living up to that. Well, not entirely, but he's doing a lot better than what he was his first season there. You also got to give it up to Alexander Lacazette, man, who has been in great form. He's doing well in the Europa League, just doing well for Arsenal overall, and it's definitely needed considering that Aubameyang is not having that incredible season that many were expecting him to after he signed that contract extension. And that's the beauty of having two really good strikers on your team. When one just isn't in great form, is dealing with a lot of injuries and off the field stuff, you have another great one that you can go to that can win you games. And that's what Alexander Lacazette does. Took a penalty in the 21st minute, which was drawn by Bukayo Saka, who also had a great game. He also had a score 3 minutes after that Lacazette penalty, and it was a beautiful goal at that. I mean, just the space that Arsenal was playing in. Obviously, Slavia Prague felt the pressure that they had to try to get goals. But man, the space that Arsenal were playing with was just so wide. The thing is, even in other opportunities that they've had space, they failed to capitalize on them. This game was literally the opposite. Whenever they had space, they were attacking it, and they were making the right decisions and were finishing those runs. That is the most important thing, that they were actually able to finish those runs and make some very solid goals throughout this game. I mean, to finish it 4-0 and just put this game away by halftime. I mean, they were up 4-1 on aggregate by half. It was over. They were able to add a second goal, or fourth goal, I should say, in this game by Alexander Lacazette, finishing his brace off in the 77th minute. And it was a beautifully taken goal at that. I mean, for him to be able to hold on, get the ball in the box, fake out a defender, and then find the near post. Really well taken goal from Alexander Lacazette. And just an overall incredible game from Arsenal. I mean, they're hitting their stride at the perfect moment. Of course, there are always still those opportunities from them to have a first leg performance where they just can't seem to get much going, don't take advantage of their opportunities, and end up losing the game or drawing and being down on aggregate. And especially against the top teams they're going to have to take on over the rest of this competition. They're taking on Villarreal, who have a great attack. A very solid attack. Chukwueze, who I just finished talking about, Gerard Moreno, Dani Parejo. They got a bunch of guys that can really score goals and really create stuff for them, for teammates and for themselves. And Arsenal need to be up for the task. And I'm sure they are. They have the quality and they can do it. But they need to be able to play consistently through both halves. Because there are so many times when they have an incredible first half or a bad first half, and then it's literally the exact opposite in the second half, and they just can't find consistent play. This game from start to finish was all Arsenal. They were literally playing with Slavia Prague throughout this entire game. And you just look at the stats, it tells you. I mean, Arsenal only had 7 shots, but 5 of those were on target. Slavia Prague had 7 shots, none on target. They were not allowed to get any sort of momentum. And even Slavia Prague did have more possession. They had 61% possession. They just couldn't do anything with it because Arsenal were playing so sound defensively. We're getting, the players in front of the ball. We're not allowing them to get, behind them. Almost never. And it was just a very solid game from Arsenal. One of their best overall games from start to finish that they've played in some time now, especially in the Europa League. I mean, I don't count group stage because, they'll have some crazy games in group stage. But in terms of the knockout rounds, they have been playing so well. And this is easily their best performance. And it's coming at the perfect time, Now taking on Villarreal, it's going to be a challenge. But I feel like they certainly can do it. And it's going to be very interesting to see if you're going to get an all-English final as, maybe Manchester United meets them there. So very exciting game. And now let's move on to that Manchester United versus Granada game where it just kind of felt like Manchester United were just outclassing Granada. They're such a small club and they do the best that they could. They're always trying their hardest, and I love that from Granada. They also play very organized. But it was just the quality from Manchester United was just far too much. It just never felt like Granada can really get into the game. They did have more shots, one more shot on target, but still it just never felt like they were threatening Manchester United. That was the thing. They had a couple opportunities on set pieces in the first half, which I believe it was Yangel Herrera who had both of those opportunities but really couldn't put them away. And after that, it was pretty much all Manchester United. I mean, got to give props to Edinson Cavani getting his 50th goal in UEFA competitions. Huge accomplishment for him. I mean, he's one of the best strikers. He had stretches where he was one of the best strikers in the world. And, honestly, I think in terms of just number 9 guys, he's the best on the team. Anthony Martial has a really good skill set, but I just think Edinson Cavani, with the type of players that they have around him, is the perfect fit for that starting 11, and he should be the number 9 going forward. But of course, you never know how Solskjaer is going to put his lineups together. But still, Manchester United were able to take care of business here, win 2-0 over Granada, and make it look extremely easy. I mean, Edinson Cavani scored early on in the game, and really there wasn't much else after that. They were just, kind of controlling the ball, making sure that Granada didn't get any momentum going into the half or even early on in that second half, and they did their job well. And of course, just to put that little cherry on top and kind of, I don't know, it honestly stuck for Granada, but Jesus Vallejo in the 90th minute picked up an own goal after he really couldn't see the ball coming his way. After Mata jumped in to try to get a header, it hit him in the face, and it really went right into the goal for his own team. Tough way to end your Europa League campaign, and obviously now, when you really think about where they are in their league, doesn't really look like they're not really going to make a run for that for another Europa League run. But still, you got to be impressed with what Granada have been able to do from being a club that nobody was expecting to even be mid-table in La Liga last year to be in a Europa League spot and make it out of the group stage, make it into the quarterfinals of the Europa League. And yeah, they did lose heavily to Manchester United, losing 4 on aggregate, but still, they put up a fight every single game, and they're always going to be a La Liga team that I root for, in the shadows. I'm not going to be I'm not a Granada fan or anything like that, but certainly in the shadows, I'll certainly be, rooting for Granada. But yeah, man, Manchester United took care of business, move on to that semifinal where they will be taking on Roma, who had, honestly, the best 2 legs that a very underappreciated 2 legs between Roma and Ajax. I mean, it was just such great football that you saw from them. It's no PSG Bayern Munich. Obviously, that's Champions League. That's a whole other level of game, of play style and just quality. But Roma and Ajax put on a show over these first 2 legs, and it was very fun to watch. And Ajax had a chance here. They had opportunities to score goals, and so did Roma, but it just felt like Ajax just didn't take advantage of them. They had 10 shots, only 3 on target. Roma were on their heels for most of this game. I mean, 72% possession in favor of Ajax. Obviously, it doesn't really tell you, who's going to win or not, but it certainly gives them, an opportunity to get more looks at goal. And whenever, they got into the half of Roma a few times, they just couldn't really have, any urgency. And not urgency, it's more like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just efficiency in that final third. I'll go with that word. I just didn't really feel it. Like, whenever they got there, it just kind of felt like they were lacking something. They were lacking that final ball, that final shot. It just wasn't there for them. There was a couple times when Tadic got there and he kind of hit it right into who was it? I think it's Paul Lopez, right? Yeah, the goalkeeper for Roma. So, you would expect him to put it in the back of the net, but it was kind of a weak shot. There was a cross that went into the box that was kind of tipped by an Ajax player right into Paul Lopez's hands. Like, it wasn't really a shot on goal. And yeah, you can credit the Roma defense for making things difficult for them, but there were still a lot of opportunities where it just felt like Ajax could have kind of gotten away here and really made this a tie that goes into extra time and made it kind of an historical Europa League tie. But they just couldn't do it. They were able to get one back early on in that second half after, what was it? Who was it that scored? After Edin Dzeko. Oh, no. My apologies. They were able to get back into this tie, scoring 1 goal right before what am I trying to say? Right after the second half. My apologies. And it made things very interesting because obviously Roma did get 2 goals 2 away goals in that first leg, so they still needed that extra goal. But still, this puts a lot of, this gives them momentum, especially since it was early on in that second half. They just couldn't really produce much more after that. And the fact that it was Broby, the 19-year-old player, 19-year-old striker for Ajax, also shows you that the kid's got skill and he can perform on that big stage. But they just weren't able to do much else after that. And then, of course, when Roma were able to get that goal in the 72nd minute, of course, by Edin Dzeko, who else would it be? The man who's been scoring for Roma for years now and has been showing up in these big games. He shows up once again and really gives Roma that little bit of cushion that they needed to really, feel a little bit more relaxed and not relaxed, but just feel a little bit better about the tie. And Ajax couldn't get that second goal to really send this into extra time. And that's why now Roma are moving on to that semi-final to face off against Manchester United. And that is going to be a very exciting tie to watch. When I really think about it, I don't think Roma can hang with Manchester United. I just think that Manchester United have been playing so well this season. And Roma in Serie A, they were playing well early on. Their defense has always been kind of lacking this year. But their attack is very solid with guys like Mkhitaryan, Dzeko, Pedro, Pellegrini. They got a lot of great quality in that attack. So they'll certainly make things difficult for Manchester United's defense. Maguire and I forgot the other one. But still, it's gonna be a very interesting 2 legs between Roma and Manchester United. Super excited to see it. And on the other side, Arsenal versus Villarreal. This is gonna be which team can be more precise in their final third. Which one's gonna have more conviction there and really, make this. I think it's gonna be a high-scoring 2 legs between Arsenal and Villarreal. I can easily see this going to 6 or 5 goals on aggregate for one of those teams, or maybe even both, to make this a really crazy tie. But again, it all depends on which team shows up for both, because both have had inconsistencies throughout their season so far, and but I do expect Arsenal to actually move on. So I do see Arsenal and Manchester United making it an all-English Europa League final this year, but we'll just have to wait and see. It's going to be very exciting. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the FA Cup semi-final between Manchester City and Chelsea, and of course that Copa del Rey final of Barcelona and Athletic Bilbao. Right after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, we went over the Europa League quarterfinal second legs, and I quickly previewed the semifinal as well. So if you guys want to go check that out, please go and do so. But now we're going to be talking about the FA Cup semifinals, the Copa del Rey final recap, and if we got a little bit of time, we'll talk about the top 5 leagues as well, giving you guys a little bit of that domestic info. So let's get started. I want to talk about the FA Cup first. We had 2 games go off. We had Leicester City versus Southampton, and we had Chelsea versus Man City. Let's just get this, segment started with the best one of the day, which was, of course, Chelsea versus Man City. You had two of the best teams in the league going at it. Obviously, Chelsea, since Tuchel's arrival, have been absolutely on fire. They can't be scored on. Of course, the offense, that's the biggest weakness for them. But they have shown to be a lot more organized. Their passing is way more crisp. And that's what you saw a lot in this game. Like, Chelsea really dominated the pace of play and the tempo throughout most of this game. And that's why they were able to come out and get the upset, a 1-0 upset over Man City. You also got to consider that Man City did have to make a lot of changes heading into this game, since they do have to worry about the semifinal of the Champions League. I mean, so do Chelsea, but Man City had 8 different lineup changes in this game, going with guys like Ferran Torres, who's that? Hernandez. Rodri. Oh, man, I only know him as Rodri, so when I saw R. Hernandez, I was a little confused. Laporte came in, Mendy came in, Fernandinho came in. So they certainly made a lot of different changes throughout their starting 11, and it obviously messed with continuity because they could barely get their foot on the ball, and when they did, they didn't make the right passes, the right place to really hold on to it and keep possession. Chelsea were the ones that were just, consistently having the ball at their feet, holding on to possession. They weren't allowing Manchester City's, tight pressure to really mess with them and get them out of their rhythm. They were able to, just almost every single time they would be pushed back to their back line, and they would play it perfectly. Just continue to pass the ball around, make the right decision. Don't try to force anything too much. Just make the next pass, make the right pass, and just continue to move up down the field. That's what they were doing for pretty much this entire game. And I didn't think they would be able to hold on to that for 90 minutes. I knew, they had the skill. Obviously they have enough players, but I just didn't think they were going to be able to continue that style of play for all 90 minutes. But they did do so. Like, even the first half was very pro Chelsea. Like, they were continuously getting that ball into the final third. The only problem was, as it's been all season, it's that final third play. Like, can they make the correct decision? Can they get an open look at goal? And that just really didn't happen very often. They only had 5 shots in this entire game, 3 on target. Man City's definitely had more opportunities, and primarily in that second half. But they also only had 3 shots on target. So it was a bit of a back and forth, cagey affair where neither team was really allowing one to get, enough room to get a clean look. However, Chelsea were able to make that breakthrough when they scored in the 55th minute via Hakim Ziyech. And it's pretty crazy because Ziyech has had a very, very poor season this year after being brought in during the summer transfer window. And the reason that this goal even happened was because the Man City goalkeeper, well, technically the backup goalkeeper, Zach Steffen, the USA international, was kind of caught in no man's land when a ball got through the back line, and you had Timo Werner coming through, just streaking up the left wing. Zach Steffen wasn't sure what to do. He was kind of caught in that no man's land, wasn't sure whether to commit fully into that run of Timo Werner or to move back and to try to get back in goal. He didn't do either, and it made the life much easier of Timo Werner. All he had to do was find Hakim Ziyech wide open inside the box to really just put the ball inside the net. So very decent goal from Chelsea, especially for them to be able to make that forward pass and to actually take some risk in their attacking. That's honestly when they had the best opportunities, because in the second half it was actually where they had the best opportunities to score. There was a situation where Hakim Ziyech found a little bit of space between Ruben Diaz and Laporte, and Ruben Diaz actually had a missed tackle, something that has rarely happened this season, but he did have a missed tackle, and it allowed Hakim Ziyech to get pretty much a wide open shot at goal with only Zach Steffen in between him, and Zach Steffen did come through with the save. So whenever Chelsea started playing a little bit more loose, not just try to keep the ball in the midfield and just try to tiki-taka their way up. They did find better opportunities. So maybe they'll try to play that way more, and they should, because they looked so much better that way. But still, the fact that they were even able to find opportunities behind this Man City stout defense was very impressive. And you got to give it to Timo Werner and Hakim Ziyech to really put that one actual run that they had into an actual goal. So they were able to score that goal, make it 1-0, and that was really all she wrote in this game, because Man City were certainly feeling that pressure, but when you really looked at the way they played throughout that entire game, it just felt like a team that was tired, a team that that has had their schedule bunched up since the beginning of the year and haven't really had much time to just rest. And obviously they tried making all those changes, and it just didn't really work out. Like they couldn't really find any continuity between this team. Whenever they got inside to score, they were usually off target, weren't really getting decent looks at goal. And the worst part is that they certainly had some opportunities to score the go-ahead goal and even an equalizer late in the game. They just couldn't really put the right foot on the ball and to drive it into the pass of the net. There were some, and I do got to give a little some props to Kepa, who hasn't really had the best time in a Chelsea uniform, but he did play a decent game. Didn't really put himself into too many tough situations. Chelsea's defense, as it has been since Tuchel's arrival, was very stout. And again, we're not really allowing Man City to do whatever they wanted in that half of Chelsea. But whenever situations did arise where Kepa had to step up, he did so, and you got to be impressed with that. Him not getting losing that starting spot to Edouard Mendy, and to be able to play this well in a game like this against Man City, you got to take note of that. So in the end, very a game between Chelsea and Man City that you wouldn't have expected. Two teams that played very poor offensively, but it was still pretty fun when you look at the back and forths. But you still want to see more from this type of game. So it left a little bit to be desired. But Chelsea moving on to a third FA Cup final in 4 years. I remember hearing the commentators talk about this being one of the first time that a team actually does this in Premier League history, or at least over the last 20 years. So huge accomplishment for Chelsea, and Man City's quadruple bid is destroyed. So now let's move on to the other FA Cup battle, which was Leicester City versus Southampton. And this was a game that you were usually expecting Leicester City to win here, especially since they had Vardy back. They got who was it? Ndidi, Tielemans. They were missing James Maddison, at least in the front, in the first 11. He was coming off the bench. But yeah, I mean, this team, Leicester City, have dealt with a lot of injuries and have had to go through a lot of obstacles in order to really be where they are right now. And this game was no different. I mean, they did play with a pretty solid starting 11 with Ndidi, Tielemans, Castagne, Fofana, Johnny Evans, and then you obviously had Vardy and the super informed Iheanacho up top, but. And on the Southampton side, they had most of their guys. They had Vestergaard, Bednarak, James Ward-Prowse, Bertrand, Kyle Walker-Peters, and then, of course, up top you have Nathan Redmond and Danny Ings. So they had a very solid lineup as well. But this was a lot of poor offense in this game. There was a total of one shot on target in this entire game, and that, of course, came from Leicester City, who won this game 1-0 due to a goal from Iheanacho, who has been, like I said, man, just absolutely killing it. And, of course, you also have to give a lot of credit to Jamie Vardy, who played extremely well in this game also, being able to consistently get by that back line, find space between it, and really cause a lot of havoc for that Southampton defense. And he was actually the one that found Iheanacho for that goal. The first shot he took was deflected, so Jamie Vardy didn't end up getting that assist, but Iheanacho did get the rebound and put it home to give Leicester City a big-time 1-0 victory against Southampton. But yeah, in the end, this game was a lot of back and forth, but not much really going either way. Southampton had 6 shots and none on target, while Leicester City had 10 shots and 1 on target. A lot of the time, Southampton and Leicester City were making sure to keep a lot of bodies in front of the ball. They were rarely allowing somebody to get behind the back line. It was only those few times that Jamie Vardy or Iheanacho in himself were able to get behind that back line, but it was very far and few between for either of these teams. So it was kind of uneventful in this game, to be honest, but still Leicester City were able to hold on and win this game 1-0. And they will be meeting Chelsea in that FA Cup semi-final, I should say. And it's going to be a very exciting game. You got two really exciting teams, 2 pretty good defensive teams and not so good offensive teams. So we'll have to wait and see how that one's going to turn out. So now I want to talk about the Copa del Rey final, which saw an incredible flurry of goals from Barcelona in that second half. The first half was pretty much as uneventful as they come. Barcelona could barely create anything, even though they had more possession. The pressure on the ball was certainly stifling Athletic Club. They just couldn't hang with Barcelona in this game. They had 7 shots, only 1 on target, while Barcelona had 14 shots and 8 on target. So they were certainly doing whatever they wanted in this game. On top of that, they had 77% possession for the entire game, which is incredibly dominant. And when you consider everything else combined with it, the 93% pass accuracy, the 4 corners, although Athletic Club did also have 4 corners, they were just all over the place. And they, the first half leaves a lot to be desired from Barcelona, but then that second half they came out firing, and specifically in that one stretch, it was about as good as it can get from Barcelona. You got Antoine Griezmann opening up the scoring in the 60th minute, looking very strong with a nice little tap in. Frankie de Jong getting a header. It looked like it could have hit Messi, but he was a little too far away from it. Frankie de Jong was there to clean it up and head it home. And then after that, you got a brace from Messi. 2 incredible goals that just go to show you, how good he was. And really for this entire game, Messi was playing extremely well, but they just really could not create anything in that first half. It was like they were running in mud. Athletic Club were kind of playing the game they wanted to play, which was a nice bogged down defensive game where neither team is really getting many counterattacks. And but then in that second half, Barcelona were just on another level, passing it the way you would expect them to. Just continue touch passes, a little bit of tiki-taka here and there, even though it wasn't at that full display. It was not where it was a couple years ago, but it was close. It was as close as you could see. That 1 12-minute stretch was as good as we've seen Barcelona pretty much all season, I would have to say. So it was very, very exciting to watch, especially Lionel Messi, as he, you had thoughts about, he's still one of the greatest in the world, even now, there's no denying that, but you were always wondering, does he still have that ability to just take over a game? Just mess someone up and just absolutely, carry Barcelona by himself, and he absolutely does. I mean, 2 goals in 4 minutes and making it look easy at that around multiple defenders. It is a sight to see, and that's Lionel Messi for you, man. And of course, the commentators yelling, please don't leave, please don't leave. It's like, because it would hurt to see Lionel Messi anywhere else but Barcelona. So that's going to wrap it up for the Copa del Rey final. And now I want to quickly talk about the top 5 leagues. We had some interesting games going on. I'm going to go over them quickly because we only got about 5 minutes left. Premier League, we had a pretty interesting game between Everton and Tottenham. It ended up ending in a 2-2 draw, and both goals were pretty close to each other. Tottenham opened up the scoring with a goal from Harry Kane in the 27th minute to make it 1-0, and then Sigurdsson was able to get a penalty in the 31st to tie it up before halftime, and it went into the half up tied 1-1. And then after that, Sigurdsson got his brace in the 62nd minute to put the pressure on Tottenham. But then Harry Kane also got his brace in the 68th minute to tie everything up at 2 apiece. This game was a lot of Everton. I mean, they were getting more shots, more opportunities at goal. They had more efficient looks, and it really felt like they were going to be the ones to really pull away, especially after scoring that second goal and really applying the pressure onto Tottenham. However, Harry Kane would refuse to allow Tottenham to fall here. He made sure to have them still within that range of a top 5 spot in this league. And yeah, I mean, it's close. I mean, Everton needed a win here in order to get above them, especially since the goal differential-wise, they lack behind teams like Tottenham, Liverpool, Chelsea, and even West Ham. So this was a big-time draw for Tottenham. Harry Kane being able to get a brace here and really put Tottenham on his back. It was very impressive. And then we got a big upset here with Newcastle defeating West Ham. West Ham were at a disadvantage for a lot of this game. Craig Dawson picking up a red card in the 36th minute, and that actually allowed Newcastle to really go on a rampage in that first half. Issa Diop got an own goal in the 36th minute, and then Jolinto in the 41st made it 2-0 heading into halftime. And you look at the answer that West Ham had. Issa Diop was able to kind of make up for that own goal that he picked up in the first half with a goal in the 73rd to make it 2-1. And then you had Jesse Lingard with a super clutch penalty in the 80th minute to tie it up. Dramatic scenes. It was incredible. And then Joe Willock, the loanee from Arsenal, was able to give Newcastle the game winner with an 82nd minute goal and give Newcastle a 3-2 lead on this day. Very, very exciting stuff. West Ham, obviously it was impressive to see them fight back, down a man, but it was just too little too late. They were not able to hold Newcastle to 2 goals, and they lose the points. So with that, they are in a tougher situation. They're only a point ahead of Chelsea, 3 points ahead of Liverpool, who are still yet to play this week. We'll just have to wait and see how those games pan out to see if they're able to hold on to a top 4 spot. And we had Wolves versus Sheffield United. Sheffield United, who have just recently been relegated to the Championship. Willian Jose was able to get a goal for Wolves. I'm not even sure. I think that might be his first goal of the season. Maybe I'm wrong because I haven't really been keeping up with the Wolves that much this season. But yeah, that was one of Willian Jose's first goals as a Wolves. So yeah, pretty player, pretty good. Last, we got Manchester United, who were able to take care of business over Burnley. Mason Greenwood gets a brace in the 48th and 84th minute. And Edison Cavani just continues to score goals, getting a goal in the 93rd minute, just to kind of put a cap on the game to give Manchester United a 3-1 win. Big-time scenes and big-time win for Manchester United, who are now only 8 points away from Man City for that title spot. I'm not really trying to hype anything up, but they do have a couple of games won in a row. Man City have lost 2 of their last 5 games. So, it's maybe, but obviously the odds are increasingly against Manchester United. So it's going to be very tough for them to really catch up there. Let's move on to Bundesliga, where we had some pretty exciting games. Borussia Dortmund were able to defeat Werder Bremen. Giovanni Reina scoring for the first time in a while in the 29th minute. Erling Haaland picking up a brace, and Mats Hummels finishing it off in the 87th minute to make it 4-1. And this was after Werder Bremen started off the scoring in the 14th minute. Bayern Munich were able to hold on in a victory over Wolfsburg, scoring 3 goals in the first 37 minutes. Weghorst was able to add a goal for Wolfsburg in the first half to make it 3-1. But you got 2 from Jamal Musiala and 1 from Maxime Choupo-Moting. Huge first half from Bayern Munich. But then Wolfsburg were not going to go down swinging. We're not going to go down without a fight. And Maximilian Phillips picked up a 54th minute goal to make it 2-3 for Wolfsburg, but they just were not able to find that equalizer. They weren't really, in much of a rhythm throughout this game. They only had 3 shots on target throughout the whole thing. Didn't have as much possession. And you also got to credit Neuer. He had a very solid game as well. And Bayern Munich were able to hold on here and really make a little bit of distance in the standings here. which in my opinion, with now this draw, because I believe RB Leipzig drew this week with Hoffenheim, it pretty much puts the Bundesliga title away for good for Bayern Munich. RB Leipzig needed to win out, and they just couldn't. They had 16 shots in this game, only 2 of those on target, 64% possession. Everything was there for them to really, easily get a win here, and they just couldn't do it. And Hoffenheim posed no threat. 5 shots, 0 on target, but RB Leipzig just couldn't do enough to really get past them. And what else we had? We had SC Freiburg defeating Schalke 4-0. Leverkusen defeating Köln 3-0. Mönchengladbach defeating Frankfurt 4-0. Wow, what a game. 4 goals from 4 different players. Matthias Ginter, Jonas Hoffmann, Rami Bensebaini, and Hansi Wolf. Man, what a game from Mönchengladbach over Frankfurt. One of the bigger surprises this season. And there's still a little bit of distance between Frankfurt and Dortmund, but there's still now only 4 points separating those two clubs from who gets a Champions League spot this season. That'll be an interesting finish. Next, let's go to Serie A, where we got Milan defeating Genoa. 2-1, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 2-1. Atalanta defeating Juventus 1-0. Tough loss. Roma, after defeating Ajax in the Europa League this past week, lose to Torino 3-1. Not the result they were hoping for, especially with the red card that was picked up late in the game, which then resulted in an extra time goal for Torino. But still, I mean, Roma were just absolutely outclassed in this game, and it's super, super shocking. I mean, they were probably just rotating guys out since that Europa League game, but still, you'd expect them to be able to hang against a team like Torino. Inter Milan tying against Napoli, big game for Napoli. I mean, they did get an own goal by Handanovic. So the goalkeeper for Inter Milan was not able to keep that ball out and actually got an own goal there. And then you had Christian Eriksen, 55th minute goal to tie it up and really give Inter Milan at least a point in this game, with Milan winning it out. And with 6 games left, there's just really no chance for AC Milan to catch up. Behind by 9 points. They need a dramatic turn of events to really go down for this to happen. And Atalanta playing great, 5 wins in a row, only 2 points behind Milan for that second place spot. Juventus has kind of just sputtered down throughout the rest of this season. You'd expect a little more urgency since they lost in the Champions League knockout rounds, but it's just not happening for them. Atletico Madrid take care of business in La Liga, defeating Eibar 5-0. Very impressive win. Real Madrid dropped points today with a 0-0 goalless draw. Barcelona did not play this week. Villarreal were able to take care of business, get a 5-1 victory over Levante after their win in the Europa League. And just overall, it was some pretty solid games. Real Sociedad lost to Sevilla 2-1 in a very exciting game there. You had Fernando and Josef and Nasiri getting goals in the first half after Carlos Fernandez for Real Sociedad opened up the scoring in the 5th minute. Big time games there, and in the end, you got Atletico Madrid still holding on to that slight lead in the group in the standings, with a 3-point lead over Real Madrid and a 5-point lead over Barcelona. But Barcelona still have a game in hand there. Not really sure when that one's going to be played. I don't really see it here, but still, it's going to be a very exciting end to the season as it's getting closer and closer. And lastly, let's go to Liga, where things are just continuously heating up. You got a 4-point lead. No, is that a 3-point lead? That's a 3-point lead separating Lyon at 4th place and Lille at 1st. That is ridiculous. Lille is at 70 points. They just finished drawing their last game against Montpellier. PSG had a dramatic victory over Saint Etienne this past weekend, getting a goal in the 95th minute from Mauro Icardi to give PSG a huge and very much needed win here to really pick up a couple points on Lille. They're now only 1 point behind them. Monaco also won this week. They're only 2 points behind Lille. And Lyon at 67 points. They also got a win. They're only 3 points behind. This is as competitive as it has been in a while. And I'm here for it. I'm living it up. So it's going to be very exciting to see how this season ends. And yeah, I can't wait for it. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the top 10 Liverpool players this season right after this.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the FA Cup semi-final, the Copa del Rey final between Barcelona and Athletic Club, and we talked about the top 5 leagues, went over a few games that happened this past weekend. So it was a jam-packed segment, so if you guys want to go check that out, please go and do so. But now we're going to be talking about the top 10 Liverpool players this season. It has been a bit of an up and down year for Liverpool. They had one of their worst runs in club history when they were losing like back-to-back home games and just couldn't figure anything out on the offensive end. But in the end, Liverpool were able to at least make it to a quarterfinal in the Champions League. There's still a possibility that they can be eligible for the Champions League next season. They just got to make a big-time push here at the end of the year. But yeah, now we're going to talk about all the guys that really made this season, a little bit better than maybe it should have been, considering how they played. And let's get started. With number 10, we got Diego Jota. This man came in during the winter transfer window, and there weren't really many, or I think it was actually the summer transfer window, but there was a couple head scratches, wondering, why was this guy brought in? You got some incredible players already up top, so he's just going to be some depth. And he was a lot more than just depth. I mean, 25 matches played, he had 12 goals and 1 assist. He was a pretty decent passer as a forward, almost 75% pass completion of 21 passes a game. He can create for himself, almost had about a dribble per game, and he was good in the air. He had a lot of headed goals, 0.7 aerial duels won per game. Obviously, his size makes it a little difficult for him to win most of them. However, he does have the ability to get up in the air and really make havoc for any defense. But you just got to love the hustle, the work rate of Diego Jota. He had a couple of moments in the beginning of his Liverpool career where he just messed up and didn't really have the strongest start. But then he went on a rampage in the month of, I believe, February into March. And he was just on an absolute tear. He's been playing great all season. 12 goals. I believe that's good for what is that? That's good for that's tied for second on the team, which is a huge accomplishment. I mean, when you got guys like Sadio Mani and Mohamed Salah on this team, to be able to be second in the team on goals, and even Roberto Firmino, that takes a lot. So a huge season from Diego Jota, and he certainly has proven his worth for Liverpool this season. At number 9, I have Jordan Henderson. Last year, being named one of the top players in the Premier League. Obviously, he's taken a bit of a step back this season due to some injuries. 28 matches played. He's got about a goal and an assist. Same thing he had last year. But he's still as good as ever. I mean, his ability to be able to control the tempo of a midfield with his 86.7 pass completion percentage of about 76 passes a game is incredible. It literally calms everything down in the midfield for Liverpool. 0.6 key passes per game, 1.3 blocks, 1.1 interceptions, 2.0 clearances. So he's also a stifling defensive player. He's always willing to put his body on the line and really make the big play for his defense. And he's also extremely smart. He's got one of the best IQs on this team, and he really makes everything a lot easier for his teammates. Just hanging back in that midfield and just making the right pass and not making anything too difficult for him. So Jordan Henderson just continues to play as good as not as good as last season, because of course there's inconsistencies because of his injury. That's why he drops back all the way down to 9, when last year he was like second or first. But still, he's a very, very solid player and a player that Liverpool are obviously going to need as the years go on. At number 8, we have Georginio Wijnaldum, and maybe this is a bit low for him. In 44 matches played, he had 3 goals. He was probably the best passer on the team with a 92.6 pass completion percentage of 42 passes a game. He was able to really create for himself with his technical skills. He almost got a dribble. Well, he did have a dribble per game. 0.7 tackles, so he also was able to really stifle a team with his defense. 1.0 blocks a game, 0.9 aerial duels. He's got that physical ability, that athleticism, and he's just such a good overall talented player. Like, he's got a lot of skills. He doesn't really do one thing incredible. He can score goals, he can get his teammates involved, but that's the thing. He does everything just very, very well. And that's what I love about Wijnaldum. Like, you can trust him to be, not an anchor in a defense, but one of the, pieces in the midfield that will help on the defensive end and just be a classic box-to-box midfielder. And that's why Wijnaldum is always courted by so many top clubs, like Barcelona, for instance. So just a big, big season for Georginio Wijnaldum, and he'll probably be asked to join Barcelona this summer as well. So we'll just have to see what happens there. At number 7, we have Roberto Firmino. A big season for him, man. 6 goals, 7 assists, and 41 appearances. Almost an 80% pass completion. So he's always been one of the best skilled strikers in the world. Like, when you think of Roberto Firmino, you don't think lights out goal scorer. You think, passing maestro, work rate king, all around player that'll just do it all for his team. He's not really going to be that guy that'll just go out and score 15 plus goals in a season. But you'll usually see a stat line like this where he'll get 6 goals, 7, lead your team in assists because he's such a great passer. 0.9 key passes a game, 1.1 dribbles. He can kind of do it all on that end and just create for himself and create for others. And he also, like I said, his work rate is extremely high. He's got 1.3 blocks a game, and he's a physical presence in the air, 0.7 aerial duels, 1 per game. Just an incredible season from Roberto Firmino. Of course, you could have expected a little bit more, especially in the goal-scoring threat, but he's still a very solid player, and he comes in at number 7. At number 6, we have Alisson, and yeah, he did have some issues with injuries. Had a bit of an inconsistent year. 72.2 save percentage. That's a little bit low for Alisson, but 12 clean sheets, almost an 85% pass completion on 33 passes a game. He was his sweeper keeper self. He was great coming off the line. He did make a couple mistakes here and there, which was kind of rare for Alisson, but still, you can't deny that he's still one of the best goalkeepers in the world. He's probably still a top 10 goalkeeper to me, though I don't think he's hitting that top 5 if you're just looking at this season. That's how tough of a year it was for Alisson, but still, he's a very solid goalkeeper. He'll help you win you a lot of games, and he had a solid year. Just obviously not the type of year that you expect from Alisson. Number 5, we have Trent Alexander-Arnold. 38 matches played. He had 2 goals and 6 assists. And the big thing with Trent Alexander-Arnold is just that he's a little bit inconsistent. He's not someone that you would expect to have a lot of defensive lapses, because he shines so much on that offensive end that you don't really think too much about his defense. You figure, we'll deal with his lapses on the defensive end, because of what he brings to your team offensively. And this year, it was a little bit different. He wasn't that same godlike fullback at that attacking position. His crosses were still great, second to none on the team, maybe to someone coming up a little bit later, but it just didn't have that same feeling of a Trent Alexander-Arnold type of season. I mean, he still put up two goals and 6 assists, solid numbers there. Almost a 75% pass completion of 80 passes a game. 1.7 key passes, 1.0 dribbles. So, he was really creating a lot of options and opportunities on that attacking end for Liverpool. And despite me always talking a little bit about his defense and how weak it is, he does put up some stats. 1 tackle a game, 1.1 blocks per game, 1.2 interceptions, and even 1.7 clearances a game. So he does it on both sides of the ball. It just wasn't the same type of feeling of a season from Trent Alexander-Arnold, because, I mean, we've had some, historic seasons from him of late, where he broke the record of the Premier League assist for a defender 2 years ago, and then he did it again last year, breaking his own record. So to have this type of season, it's kind of falling off that track that he was on there. But, of course, he's still very young, so you're going to still have to expect a lot more from him. At number 4, we have Fabinho, the ever versatile Fabinho, and he didn't have like a crazy, no goals, no assists. He didn't have like a crazy counting stat type of season, but there was nobody more important this season than Fabinho for this Liverpool team. I mean, to be able to switch from the defensive midfielding position to a center back on a whim. Same thing goes to Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson, he was also someone that was asked to consistently move back to that center back position and really fill in a role that was missing by Virgil van Dijk. But Fabinho filled it out beautifully. I mean, his passing was one of the best on this team. Almost a 91% pass completion of about 59 passes a game. 1.7 tackles, 1.3 blocks, 1.4 interceptions, 3 clearances, 1.6 aerial duels. He was an absolute anchor on that defensive end and was one of the main reasons why this team didn't absolutely fall apart on that end. Like, he was consistently cleaning up mistakes and was just really being, a big-time wall for Liverpool in that defense. And the fact that he can pass the ball so well made him so vital in that midfield as well. So whenever they had to move him back to center back, it wasn't a bad move because he was a solid center back, but you could clearly see that they were missing a presence in that center defensive midfielding role, since Wijnaldum and Henderson usually play more center mid, more up, because they're not as physical of a presence as Fabinho is. But still, it was a very impressive season from him. And this team, really benefited from his good play. At number 3, we have Sadio Mani. Sadio Mani started the season off extremely well, but he's kind of dialed back down a little bit. Doesn't have that same superstar feel that we were getting from him 2 years ago or even a year ago. He had, in 41 matches played, he got 12 goals and 6 assists, so he was obviously a big-time scoring and attack option threat for this Liverpool side. 73.5 pass completion percentage of 26 passes a game. You'd want that to be a little bit higher, but still, as a forward, you don't really expect much there. 1.1 key passes is very solid for this team. 0.8 tackles a game, 1.0 blocks, 2.1 dribbles. So he's obviously one of the best dribbling players on this team, which is no surprise. I mean, you got Mohamed Salah there, but he doesn't even reach the numbers that Sadio Mani were putting up in that department. So he was certainly the guy that was creating for himself most of the time, but obviously he's still able to put up those 6 assists. So he was a very, very good option on that attacking end. And I was just he's one of the best players in the world. Obviously, he had, even on a down year like this, though, he's so vital to everything that Liverpool attack does because of his pace. It draws a lot of defenders out, which then allows guys like Andrew Robertson or Trent Alexander-Arnold to toss in those incredible crosses. And Sadio Mani is very good in the air. Almost had about a 1 aerial duel, 1 per game. So he had a very solid season, and that's why he comes in at number 3. And number 2, we had Andrew Robertson. I mean, probably the best season that Robertson has put from start to finish in a Liverpool jersey. 43 matches played. He's got 1 goal and 5 assists. Almost an 80% pass completion on 77 passes a game. He was getting, his teammates open in very good situations with 1.5 key passes a game. I believe that's the best on this team, if I'm not mistaken. He was just consistently getting guys involved and finding players with those incredible crosses of his. He was able to create for himself 0.8 dribbles a game, and he was also a stout defender at that left back position. 1.4 blocks a game, 1.9 clearances a game, 0.8 interceptions, and 1.0 aerial duels. He was just doing it all for this Liverpool team, and in the early parts of the season, he was almost pretty much the MVP of this team, and he was able to just continue that progress throughout the entire year, and that's why Andrew Robertson comes in at number 2. And at number 1, of course, we have Mohamed Salah. There really was never going to be anyone else. He more than doubles the second best goal scorer on this team with 28 goals for the season. He also chipped in a few assists with 4 for the season. And this is the firecracker for this team. This is the guy, that the spark plug that you put him into the game, or whatever, he starts for you, and he at any point in the game he can just get anything going. You can expect a goal from him at literally any time, an assist. Sure, not as much, but he can obviously still get other players involved. His 82.1 pass completion percentage of about 31 passes a game proves that, as well as his 1.1 key passes a game. And of course, he gets, he's got great technical skills. And the pace, come on, man, he gets by guys like crazy. Mohamed Salah is just the epitome of a superstar in this game, and he's done a lot of that for Liverpool throughout most of the season. That's why he's been so vital to everything that they do, and I would just be shocked if anybody had him, anywhere but number 1 on this team. I mean, he's just been doing it night in and night out for this Liverpool team, and of course, it sucks now that they're no longer going to be in the Champions League. I mean, it's always better when you got guys like Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mani, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Andrew Robertson. The list goes on and on. But this team was always kind of hitting behind the 8 ball with no Virgil van Dijk. He would easily be a top 2, top 3 player on this team. But without him, they were obviously going to struggle and struggle defensively, which was going to give their attacking players less opportunities. But you still got an incredible season from Mohamed Salah. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. So, as always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I would really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.